welcome, 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 and welcome, 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 and welcome. That's 4 times. That's 4 welcomes. I think that means something in the grand scheme of welcoming an audience to a program. 4 welcomes means you guys are special, and I feel good today. It's October 1st. It's the start of a new month, and we are ready to embark on some exciting adventures coming up in the next few weeks, as long as we don't get Ebola. Right? As long as we don't get Ebola. Let me tell you guys something. I would say about a month ago, we talked about Ebola probably 2 to 3 times. We did a couple stories on Ebola, and I'm saying it like that because I think if it's more ominous sounding, you will see a more sense of urgency with our government and or with the state at local levels to put a little bit more worry into the situation that is now officially come to our homeland. Yes, that word that Lindsey Graham, John McCain, Theodore Cruz, that word, the Republican National Committee, that word homeland, that ominous word for the United States that they use when referencing ISIS attacking our homeland, an Islamic extremists attacking our homeland. And as Lindsey Graham says, kill us all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have any ISIS radical Islamic fundamentalists attacking our homeland. We have a virus named Ebola. Yes, we have been attacked on our homeland by a deadly virus before the dreaded ISIS, or as the president would call them, ISIL. So, a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, when the Ebola situation was at its highest level, and we had healthcare workers that were over in Liberia, Sierra Leone, basically in the West African region. What happened was these individuals contracted Ebola, and they got extremely sick, were on the verge of dying, and we air-vacted them back to the United States, where they got treatment at our top facilities, and the 2 doctors are free and clear of Ebola. Now, this was a huge debate. You had people talking about why we would bring Ebola purposely back to the United States. You had people like me saying that, mark my words, Ebola would eventually be here in the United States. Well, lo and behold, it took about a month, but as of yesterday, and that's only because the official news has come out yesterday. But the man has Ebola. He's in Texas, and he's had it now for well over a week. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the zombie virus from Africa is officially here in the United States. And it's in Texas, it's alive and well, and it's spreading throughout the United States. Could possibly happen, and it would be Texas's fault. And now we'll go through exactly how that is, but just remember, Texas is now ground zero where Ebola is officially at, and the Texas hospital that basically had this Ebola patient knew the information about the Ebola patient and somehow didn't connect Ebola as being a big deal and just sent him on his merry way after he had come to the hospital with flu-like symptoms and told them he was recently on a trip to West Africa, and more importantly, Liberia, which is the epicenter of Ebola. So basically, the reports are yesterday a man has been officially confirmed to have Ebola. It happened late last night, and it's 2 days after the man was admitted to the Dallas hospital with suspicious symptoms, as they like to say. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about a disease, Ebola, something that has been around in our vocabulary for years and years and years and years and years. It's one of those diseases that were in countries like Africa, and you basically got that disease from eating bats or monkeys. No bullshit. That's how the disease was transmitted. You had people that are living in these poor regions out hunting, and bats and monkeys are a food source that provide protein and nutrients and things of that nature, and they're cheap. It's monkeys and bats. They're everywhere. Well, they also have Ebola. So you have these people that are hunting monkeys and bats. They eat the monkeys and bats, and in turn they now have the Ebola virus. And then they spread the disease through the exchanging of bodily fluids. And we'll get into the notion how you hear certain government officials or people from the CDC or even doctors on CNN like Sanjay Gupta downplay how to contract the disease, but when you really break it down, it's very easy to contract the disease because it's no different than getting the flu or a cold in the sense of somebody sneezing, somebody having bodily fluids on their hands when they shake your hand and you rub your eyes. and the notion of them having to be sick to pass it on is no different than somebody having to be sick when they pass on flu or things of that nature. And the notion that it's so hard to contract the disease that ultimately people in the United States get things of that nature on a regular basis, because the notion that, well, you have to have signs of Ebola, and when that happens, you're normally on death's door and in a hospital, which in turn they diagnose you. But once again, why all of this is being downplayed, I have no idea. It's like this is more of a threat to our way of life than ISIS is. But yet ISIS is on the march in their broken down jeeps on ferry boats crossing the oceans to come and kill us all. And yet Ebola is here, is actually possibly spreading throughout communities of Texas. And yet it still is being downplayed by certain people, whether it's the media or it's healthcare workers. But again, if you read really closely how they're telling people you could contract it and all of these ways that it happens, you have to read that it's not hard to get. And the notion that one day you have Ebola, you don't show signs, you're walking along, and then 8 hours later you could barely get out of bed and you could barely function, which in turn you go right to the hospital, and once you're in the hospital, then they diagnose you and you can't spread it to anybody because, of course, once you have it, unless you're on death's door, that's the only time you can spread it. And that's furthest from the truth, because everybody's body is different, and once you start a cough, as they say, the disease at first gives somebody the sign of having a cold, having a cough. Well, when you are in that phase, you are contagious. And that phase isn't on death's door. That phase is somebody going, ooh, I got a cold or something. I'm coming down with something. Let me take about 10 Advil, drink some orange juice, so I can get to my presentation at the office. No different than we do when we have a basic cold or flu. Well, that time, you're contagious. That time, you're sneezing. That time, you're blowing your nose. That time, you're throwing up. That time, things are happening where bodily fluids are starting to spread. Plain and simple. I mean, let's face it. The healthcare workers that contracted Ebola in Liberia that eventually got flown here to the United States, it wasn't like they were covering themselves in urine and feces and blood from the Ebola people. And they wore gloves and they had masks on, and they were generally careful. But when you're near and around this disease, and you're dealing with people that can spread it once they have it, like a common cold, so their bodily fluids could be on toilet seats, their bodily fluids could be on drinking cups, on doorknobs, all of these things that could possibly happen is what gave the doctors this disease. They weren't playing in shit. So here we are in the United States, and we now have Ebola here in Texas, and it's a disease that, as of today, has killed 3,000 people in Africa. 3,000 people have died from Ebola in this past year. And there's another 6,500 that are stricken with Ebola that will eventually die. Do you guys understand that? 6,500 people, okay, have Ebola in Africa. And let's be more specific. Liberia, Sierra Leone, but the central nesting place of Ebola is Liberia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the guy that is in the Texas hospital right now that has Ebola, he flew here from Liberia. Again, perplexing. Why this individual would even be allowed on an airplane with other passengers and make their way from a hot spot of disease and come on into the United States. An amazing question I would like to ask all of the people that are demanding that we send back little 5-year-old Honduran kids because they have chicken pox, or they might have the measles, or they just might be dirty Mexicans, okay? All those Republicans that want to build fences and walls because these people, children of the gardeners, children of the maids, they're going to come here and spread disease and be cover for terrorists, mainly ISIS, to have car bombs blowing up our homeland. But yet, they do not have any concern that we have not closed our borders to airplane flights in and out of Liberia. That is completely bizarre to me. It really is. We worry in the United States about things that only are, I would say, symbolism. The little kids and the Mexicans running across the border. Video of infrared glasses, or the nighttime glasses that show the Mexicans trying to cross through the water, and you have border agents with shotguns and machine guns arresting people. That's symbolism. Having these kids all wound up in rooms. It's symbolism, and it's impactful, and it's visually stimulating to people. ISIS, it's visually stimulating to see them marching in Iraq or Syria. It's stimulating to watch them waving their flags. It's stimulating to see them on their monkey bars. That's all stimulating. It's symbolism. It's things that will scare people or get them upset. It will invoke emotion. Ebola is a little virus that swims inside your blood. It's not exciting. It's kind of like AIDS. It's kind of like the whole HIV/AIDS epidemic. something that basically spread through people having unprotected sex or using intravenous drugs, and it spread like wildfire, and it still spreads. It's not stopped. Every year, thousands and thousands of people contract the disease. Why was that not stopped? Something as simple as, hey, don't share needles. Hey, don't share bodily fluids with each other. Hey, do these simple things and nobody will get a disease that will kill you. But it wasn't sexy. It was quite the opposite of sexy. It involved sex, and it showed the most vile side of something as the disease ravaged the body. Looking at somebody go from 200 pounds to 90 pounds, and they're full of these hamburger-looking lesions all over their body, and their face is sunken in, and somebody goes, what happened to them? They got AIDS. What's that? You get it from fucking somebody that has it. What? Yeah, you fuck, and that's what could happen to you when you get the disease. Are you serious? Or you could share needles with somebody because they might have gotten it from fucking somebody with the disease. Seriously? So you mean two things that I love in life, I could look like that because of it? Drugs and sex? Yep. Oh, fuck. So that whole vibe of, hey, guys, we've got a problem in the world. We have a problem in the United States. This is not good. This is an epidemic. This is something we have to contain. This is something we have to stop. Look at the words that our president, look at the words that McCain, look at the words that our politician, when they talk about ISIS. ISIS must be destroyed. ISIS must be crushed. ISIS must be defeated. Well, they're not here. Ebola's here. And you don't hear anybody say, Ebola must be stopped. Ebola must be destroyed. Because it's not sexy. It doesn't have a face. And the face that it has right now is a black child or a black woman or a black man. So, of course, people say, fuck them. No different than AIDS. The face of AIDS was gay men and junkies. So, in turn, we now have a disease that is easy to get once you have the bodily fluids on you, which is no different than colds, flus, vomit, diarrhea, any of the things that we come in contact on a regular basis that we know but we don't know. It's kind of like when you see those reports and the people go into hotel rooms with the infrared fluorescent lights and they turn it off and they shine it all over the bedspreads and they go, oh look, there's semen, there's blood, there's vomit, there's, I don't know what that is, but it's something funky. There's, it's the same thing. We come in contact with things on a daily basis that we would never in a million years come in contact with if we know. Think about how many people get on a bus. Okay? Think about how many people get on mass transit. Okay? We're all thinking, Okay. How many times have you seen bums on buses? Or just people that look a little off, they look a little deranged. And they are sitting in their own piss and shit. I could give you a video from YouTube of a guy sitting on a subway car and it's crowded. There's a lot of people there, and he just nonchalantly decides to piss and shit himself, and you see people starting to get up and walk away as the piss and shit run from the floor and spread to the people that are sitting around this person. Well, if this person had Ebola, you now have Ebola all over the fucking train. And when somebody says, yeah, but once somebody has Ebola symptoms, they go to the hospital and then they're in isolation. Really? So you're talking about bums? They're going to hospitals? Really? Poor people? Poor people. Okay? Think about poor people. Poor people that can't even get health insurance because they live in a state where the exchange is something that a governor has not prescribed to, or they have made it almost impossible to get Obamacare, or they don't even have the wherewithal to go to a healthcare provider to try to get Obamacare. They just are those people that you see going to soup kitchens. We all see them. We all know them. We all get stopped by them when we're going into 7-Eleven or we're going into the grocery store. Now, you're going to tell me them having a cold or having the sniffles, they're like, oh, I better get to the doctor. I better get to the doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not happen like that. So, you have a virus that is in Liberia that is killing thousands and thousands of people. And you have travel from Liberia that is coming here on a daily basis. And ladies and gentlemen, you want to know how they check in Liberia people getting on the airplane to come over to the United States? They check their temperature. They check their temperature. Have you ever seen airports in other countries? And I'm not even talking about Great Britain. I'm not even talking about Tel Aviv. I'm not talking about countries that are highly advanced, that have Iron Dome security. We're talking about an airport in fucking Liberia. Do you not understand that? Do you think that the airport in Liberia looks like LAX? Do you think the airport in Liberia is run like JFK? I mean, I keep hearing this notion that nobody that was on the airplane was at risk of contracting Ebola because the guy was not contagious on the airplane. Well, why? Well, in order for him to get on the airplane, he would have had to have his temperature checked. And at the Liberian airport, they check everybody's temperature. Oh, so you mean the airport in the area that has thousands of people dying of Ebola, and they have contracted that disease because they eat monkeys and bats. Okay, and because they informed the United States and the CDC, oh, doing their clicking sounds, don't worry about Ebola. We took out our thermometers and we checked everybody before they got on the airplane. Oh, wow, woo, good thing. You guys are on top of your shit. Okay, We got nothing to worry about. Do, 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 do. For the man to be here in the States and have Ebola, he had it when he was on the airplane. He didn't get Ebola here in the United States. If he got Ebola when he was in Texas, then we really got a big problem. But the logical explanation to this gentleman having Ebola is that he had it in Liberia. Okay? He had it in Liberia, and he got on the airplane through the stringent security of the Liberian army and the medical staff. Again, how we are putting this trust in Liberian officials that this guy got on the airplane and was not contagious is perplexing to me. This is the same area that can't stop, contain, or treat Ebola that is right there on their front door. So how the hell do we have any faith that this whole temperature checking procedure was done properly? Or let's even go further. What's to say that he didn't already have symptoms, but he paid somebody with the temperature stick to let him get on the airplane so he could get here to the United States so he could get proper treatment, because he knew that if he stayed in Liberia, he would be dead in a couple weeks. You don't know that. Again, we're talking about Liberia. We're not talking about the Tel Aviv airport. We're not talking about airports in Great Britain. We're talking about a goddamn airport in Liberia. Do you understand that? And the guy came here to visit family members. Okay? So, from Liberia to Texas, he was visiting family members. And this is where it gets incredibly fucked up. And I think you're going to hear more of this coming out, because already Rick Perry, God help us, the governor of Texas, he's on this. He's got this under control with his team of officials there in Texas. Gave a press conference with other doctors where they explained some of the snafus. So I think there's going to be more coming out of this, because what is being told to everybody doesn't add up. So what happened was this gentleman visiting his family from Liberia, okay? So right out of the gate, all right, right out of the gate, the mere fact that this individual was from Liberia and is now in Texas is a red flag. I mean, I know it's wrong. I know it's homophobic. I know all of these words could be attributed to what I'm going to say next, but we joke when people are talking about San Francisco, and we make homophobic, racist, horrific statements about contracting AIDS because it's home of the biggest gay population. I mean, it's horrible to say, but even in the back of our minds, we go, San Francisco, gay, AIDS, oh, ha, 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 ha. Again, I'm not condoning it. I'm just giving you examples, okay? People will make jokes about Africa AIDS. That's where they got the AIDS. They fucked the monkeys. The list goes on and on of regions or places in the United States where people will say, oh, that's where this is. That's Florida, Boca Raton. That's all the Jews. New York City, New York Italians, mafia. It's just, stereotypes. It's something that runs in our heads as being conditioned to believe or think or know, but ultimately we're aware. So one would think that there's a red flag that when you're sitting there around the kitchen table and somebody goes, hey, your Uncle Mike is coming into town to visit us. Really? Where's Uncle Mike coming from? Liberia. Oh, Jesus. Let's hope he doesn't bring us Ebola. That's just something that you would say in a mean, discriminatory, stereotypical, racist language. But it's there in your head for whatever reasons, good or bad. It's there. So, when Cousin Mike from Liberia is hanging out with the family, and he arrives on September 20th, and of course everybody's going, gee, Cousin Mike, hope you don't got Ebola. Just joking, ha ha ha. And on the 24th, he starts to feel a little sick. The 24th, okay? 4 days later, Cousin Mike wakes up and he comes down to eat breakfast, and everybody goes, hey, Cousin Mike, you don't look real good. He goes, I'm not feeling good at all. And they go, what? And he goes, it must be something I ate last night. And, Bill goes, well, Cousin Mike, we all ate the same thing, and us, us 10, all 10 of us that were at the picnic, we're here, we're fine, we don't look like we're gonna die. Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. And then, of course, Betty goes, maybe you got Ebola. You just came from Liberia, Cousin Mike. And he goes, oh, yeah, shit. Maybe I should go to the hospital and make sure I don't have Ebola. So Cousin Mike goes to the hospital on the 26th. Okay? All right? Do you understand that? So on the 24th, Cousin Mike is starting to feel a little sick. But of course, nobody in his family attributes it to Ebola, even though he just came from Liberia, okay? He came from Liberia. He's feeling a little sick. So they go, you know what, Cousin Mike, why don't you go all upstairs? We'll bring you some echinacea, maybe a little orange juice, and some chicken noodle soup, and sleep it off. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on the 26th, he goes, hey guys, that food poisoning is still pretty bad. And at this point, everybody in the family's going, they got masks on. You got Ebola, you motherfucker. So he goes to the hospital. And this is where it gets funky. And this is where you're going to hear controversy in the next couple days, or you might even hear about it tonight. He is there in the hospital, and depending on who you believe, the initial reports were him talking to the healthcare people in the hospital, the nurses or doctors, telling them that he doesn't feel good, and them diagnosing him with a flu and sending him back home with some antibiotics and things of that nature. So that's one report we're getting. The second report is that he went there, they did their checkup, he then told them that he recently just came back from Liberia, that he is now experiencing these flu-like symptoms. They took notes, wrote these things down, gave him antibiotics, and then sent him back home. Now, both those scenarios are incredibly troubling. And I'm not sure which one is better. Doctors not practicing proper medical protocol by going, so give us your history. What have you been doing out of the ordinary? Have you been to any different countries? Have you basically asking all the pertinent information that doctors ask when you go and say, my liver hurts, or I'm feeling sick, or my ear hurts, and the doctor asks you, do you do drugs? Do you traveled anywhere? If your prick hurts, they ask if you've been engaging in any unprotected sex. They go through all these questions. So if you go, yeah, I did just come back from Africa. Yeah, I ate some bats. Yeah, and then the doctor goes, oh shit, you might have fucking Ebola. So I don't know if it's more disturbing that the nurses and doctors just had somebody come in who had flu-like symptoms, was very sick, and they went, yeah, you're sick, here's some medicine, goodbye, without asking them a single thing about his history and what was going on in his life in the past couple days, where they could pinpoint exactly what could possibly be wrong with this individual. That is what should have been done. I'm not sure if that is as disturbing, if that is the case, and that story is true, or if the other story, which is being put out now, is more disturbing, which is the gentleman came in, flu-like symptoms, told the nurses and doctors that he had just come back from Liberia, and the nurses and doctors looked at him and went, so you just came from the Ebola capital of the world, and now you're really sick? Nah, you don't got Ebola. You probably just got a cold. Here's some penicillin. See you later. And smacked him on his ass, and he was on his way out the front door. I don't know if that's more disturbing. But both those stories are floating out in the media as to what exactly happened. But both stories don't make the good doctors in Texas look very good at all. And if that's the intelligent level of people in Texas, and mainly doctors and nurses in Texas, then they really do need to succeed from the union like Rick Perry wants, and let Texas be their own country. Let them just go out there by themselves. Because if the doctors and nurses are this stupid, who knows the IQ level of the rest of the people that live in Texas? You either have officials that don't ask any questions of a sick guy who just came from Liberia, or you have officials who hear a sick guy from Liberia is telling them everything that happened with them, and they still went, you probably don't got Ebola, here's some penicillin, see you later. And this gentleman, as we call him Uncle Mike, went home. he went back to his family. So he went back to the people that he was visiting, walked in the door and said, "Hey guys, they said I'm cool. I just got like the flu. They gave me some penicillin." And his family went, "Are you fucking sure?" And he went, "Yeah, it's the fine good doctors at the Texas hospital. Come on. They're board certified. They even got certificates that the governor signed off on that said they passed their medical boards. They're highly trained professionals." And the entire family went, "Yeah, but Uncle Mike, you look like shit. You look like you're gonna die." "No," they said, "just keep taking my penicillin." And they all went, okay. So, not one, but 2 more days go by. And it wasn't until the 28th that Uncle Mike woke up and went, "Jesus Christ, I'm gonna fucking die. I'm gonna fucking die. I feel like my insides, I have officially rotted away. I just got out of the bathroom and I left half my insides in the toilet." Oh my God. He went back to that hospital, walked in the door and went, "Hey guys, remember me? I'm the guy from Liberia." And they went, "Oh Jesus, what happened? Your cold's not clearing up? The penicillin we gave you didn't work?" And he went, "No, I think I need maybe another shot." They admitted him, and lo and behold, they did a test, and it came back, and they went, "Oh, gee, you got Ebola. You got Ebola, sir. You got Ebola. You landed in this country on the 20th in Texas, and it took 8 days for us to confirm that you have Ebola. And the process of figuring this out started on the 24th when we sent you home, because either you didn't tell us and we didn't ask where you were, where you came from, what you did, and what could be happening, or we did know, you did tell us, and yet we still made the determination that you don't have Ebola, even though you're coming from the hot spot of eating bats and monkeys and having thousands of people die from Ebola. So now this gentleman is sitting in a chamber, and this isn't a place like the American doctors went to, where it was operated by the CDC, and it had all these trained officials, like in the movie Outbreak. Talking about Texas, all right? You're talking about a hospital that already sent him home once when he said, "Hey man, I just came from Liberia," and they went, "Oh, what's that? Is that a city in Texas somewhere?" And he went, "No, that's in Africa." And they went, "Africa? Like near Kenya? Like where our president's from?" And he went, yeah, something like that." And they went, "Oh, well, I don't think you got AIDS." And he went, "Okay, cool." So this hospital that's already dropped the ball once now has this gentleman in an isolation room. But they don't have the equipment that you have in the hospital in Atlanta. So I can only imagine he's in a normal hospital room and they have trash bags duct taped up all around the bed. And that is what they are using as an isolation room. And anytime a doctor goes in and out of the room, they have to open up one of the trash bags with the duct tape and then seal it real quick. And then the doctor walks in with his hand over his mouth going, "Hey, hey, man." And he's got a pair of fucking tongs. And he's like touching the guy, checking his temperature. That's what they're doing in Texas. Because they don't have the facility to treat this patient. And of course, we're being told, he didn't infect anybody. You gotta be contagious in order to start spreading that disease. And you go, but the guy started showing signs on the 24th. Well, what about those 4 days? What do you think happened in those 4 days? The people he was family members with had to come in contact with him. And then those people they had contact with. And then those people that they had contact with. That's how these things spread. And the funny thing is, you hear a Sanjay Gupta on CNN downplay the spread. Why? I don't know. I really don't know. You hear some other officials downplaying the spread. But the CDC, if you read between the lines of what they're saying, are not downplaying the spread. And they're actually bracing everybody for what they feel is possibly on the horizon. And their quote was, "It is not impossible that there could be more people with Ebola associated with this individual. But they have no doubt they will contain and prevent Ebola from spreading." So our own CDC is quoted in a press conference saying it's not impossible that there could be more people with Ebola associated with the guy who was bleeding out his eyes and his ass for 4 days before he was in an isolation room with plastic garbage bags and duct tape. So during these 4 days, it's quite possible that there'll be more people that have Ebola that came in contact. I mean, that's how I read between the lines. It's like a girl going, "It's possible. It's possible. It could be Ryan's kid. It's also possible it could be Joey's kid. I did have unprotected sex with both of them in a span of like 2 or 3 days apart. So it's possible." That's how I see the CDC guy really telling the American people. It's not impossible that there could be more people with Ebola because of this guy. It's not impossible, but we have no doubt that we'll contain it and prevent it from spreading anymore. And you're like, so basically, Doc, what you're saying is the chances are pretty good that this guy gave Ebola to a couple more people. But you guys feel confident that you can stop this disease before it starts an epidemic in Texas and spreads out to different states. That's what you're saying, Doc, right? Right? That's what you're saying. Right, Doc? A disease that kills 90% of the people that it infects. Okay? That's what you're saying. A disease that's highly contagious. Once somebody has the symptoms of Ebola and they then spread it through bodily fluids, rather it's mucus, blood, semen, vomit, basically any juice that comes out of your body. Kind of like juice when you're talking to somebody at a party and you're carrying on a conversation and they say like a P or a Q and a big wad of spit flies out of their mouth and lands on your face. That type of bodily fluid exchange, or that exchange where that spit falls right in your fucking mouth and you go, oh my God, this guy's spit just fell in my fucking mouth. That guy at a party that could have the Ebola cold. Remember, they don't get the Ebola symptoms and they're on death's door. This guy, Uncle Mike, proved that you can have symptoms for 4 days and operate a normal life by just taking Motrin and drinking fluids and eating chicken soup to the point where you could still function. And if you're somebody in good shape, if you're somebody that works out, if you're somebody that has a high threshold for pain, then it's very possible to have Ebola, have a cold or a flu where you're sniffling or you're sneezing or you're coughing and you still work. We've all been in situations where we've had a coworker or a student with wads of tissue on their desk because they got a wicked cold or allergies. We've all been around people that have literally sat there with booger rags piled on their desk. And you go, wow, Susie, why are you still here? I've got so much work to do, and it's just, I'm all right. I've taken some medicine, and I just, my nose, it runs. So I just, I take my, just don't touch me. Don't shake my hand. How many people have we come in contact with that will say to us, hey, Bob, how you doing? I'm good. I'm a little under the weather. Don't shake my hand, though. We'll just give an elbow bump. Oh, gee, okay, Bob, yeah. Ooh, I can't shake this cold, but I'm good, though. I'm all right. We got to get this work done. This type of stuff happens all the time. That's the beginning stage if you have Ebola that you can have, that you could transmit the disease and still function in society. Again, you don't just have no symptoms and then go to bed and wake up and go, oh my God, I'm dying. Doesn't happen like that. Uncle Mike here from Liberia proved that he had Ebola for 4 days, to the point where when he went to the hospital and they checked him out and they went, you could go back home, bro, take some medicine. He didn't go in there in a fucking wheelchair. If he went in there in any other way except like this, hey, how you doing? I just got a little sore throat and I'm just feeling a little under the weather, they would have kept him. If the guy had to go in with 2 people holding him up and he was dragging his body in and they plopped him down in a chair, they would have kept him. But they didn't. He went in there and said, man, I'm just not feeling good. I'm not feeling good. And they went, you got a little fever. Here's some medicine. So that person was now back on the street communicating. They even said in the press conference today that the guy had contact with small children. These are all facts. And this is your Uncle Rob breaking down what, for some reason, people are sugarcoating. But ISIS, nobody sugarcoats. ISIS, woo! They're coming here to kill everybody. ISIS is coming to fucking kill every single one of us while we're asleep. We're going to be sleeping, thinking of rainbows and unicorns, and there's going to be a masked Islamic extremist bursting through our door with a dirty knife to cut our heads off. That's what we're being told. But Ebola? Nah, Ebola. It just affects them dirty Africans who eat monkeys and bats. Well, guess what? This disease is now in our homeland. This disease is now swimming. Okay? Swimming in our homeland. We have no idea who are on the list that have come in contact with this individual. There are so many questions that are being raised that how this could not spread is perplexing to me. It has all the makings of outbreak. When the CDC is telling everybody that it's not impossible for other people to get this, but they'll contain it. That just tells you that there's already people that are coming down with flu-like symptoms. That just tells you that there are already people coming down with flu-like symptoms. That just tells you that this super special temperature checking going on in Liberia is not super special and foolproof that we're being told. Which I'm no rocket scientist. You know, I got a high school education, but I could have told you that I would never put the trust in a Liberian social worker or a Liberian army soldier, anything, that they're the ones that is the line of defense of Ebola coming to the United States. Why we do not have a shutdown on travel from Liberia and Sierra Leone, I don't know. There was a couple rockets fired near the Tel Aviv airport during the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and we shut down air travel into Israel for like 2 days. For a fucking rocket that basically was a mile away from the airport. But you have a disease that is killing thousands upon thousands of people. And we let airplanes go in and out, in and out. We can go to LAX right now and sit there and look at the big board and go, oh, this plane's coming into Liberia from Liberia at 12:02. Awesome. How does that work? How does that work? How does that work, Republicans? You're so upset about my maid and my gardener's family coming from Tijuana to here in LA. Why aren't you worried about the airplane travel from West Africa to here? I would think that Ebola and the fact that it is easy to get on a fucking airplane and have Ebola, just like our Uncle Mike here showed, that you could fly here and literally have a biological weapon and just run around wherever you are and spread that disease and basically kill thousands of people. I mean, let's face it. You want to talk about ISIS and beheading people? You have Boko Haram. You have different Al Qaeda offshoots in Africa. Why can't you, if you really want to be John McCain and Lindsey Graham like, with this hysteria that is basically nothing more than hysteria, why don't you take it a step further? And this scenario is actually a lot more plausible than ISIS getting in little ferry boats and their rickety old jeeps and coming over here and beheading all of us in our sleep. Why can't you get a couple Boko Haram leaders or terrorist Al Qaeda leaders and grab a couple people that have Ebola and get them on an airplane and fly them here to the United States and have them basically just run around and spread that disease to as many people as they can? I mean, let's face it. Let's face it. If you have jihadists that are willing to strap C4 to their bodies and blow themselves up, you're going to tell me there can't be any jihadists that could be involved with spreading a disease like Ebola? You're going to tell me you couldn't get a couple people that have Ebola, get them on an airplane, and fly them to the United States? This guy Mike did. Our buddy Uncle Mike did. There can't be other Uncle Mikes. They then get here to the United States, they have Ebola, and now they systematically go to places where there's high population that they can spread bodily fluids. You can't go to fast food restaurants where they have the self-serve soda fountains and basically stick your bodily fluids on the nozzles of the Coke dispensers. That's very easy to do. I watch bums. I literally watch bums go into 7-Eleven and stick their dirty hands all over the soda dispensers. Go to Ralph's. Go to any of the supermarkets that have salad bars. And you can see bums sporadically walking in and sticking their hands in the salad bars and picking out food. I've witnessed it with my own two eyes. My girlfriend, young Katie Summers, has witnessed it more than one occasion. What's to prevent somebody with Ebola going, all right, our leader told us that we need to hit 4 grocery stores a day. Okay. And they go to grocery store to grocery store to grocery store to grocery store and put bodily fluids in the salad. Put bodily fluids in the spiral macaroni. Now, if you're going to go, oh, Rob, you're crazy. Well, that's no more crazy than Lindsey Graham saying ISIS is going to come here to the United States and kill us all. That has not happened, and that hasn't even been on the radar of happening. But somebody with Ebola coming from Liberia to the United States and walking around for 4 days, being in contact with people, that has happened. And if you can get radical Islamists to strap C4 to them and blow themselves up, why could you not get a couple people with Ebola and send them here to the United States and have them start spreading it? Why is that impossible? To me, that's more possible than the dirty Jeep, monkey bar climbing Islamic jihadists getting on ferry boats with their dirty machetes and taking 38 days on the good ship jihadist pop to get to the United States and then storm our houses and kill us. But that's what Lindsey Graham wants you to believe, while there's an open passage from anywhere in America to Liberia. And you have cities in Texas, you have places that are like Texas that have completely incompetent doctors and nurses that either don't recognize the danger of somebody who's sick that's from Liberia, that they could have Ebola, or they're so incompetent that they don't even ask and they give somebody a bottle of penicillin and march them on their way back home. But either way, ladies and gentlemen, this situation is far bigger of a national security crisis than any ISIS could ever be. Ebola and what is going on right now in Texas is a bigger national security threat than we have experienced since 9/11. When you talk about a biological weapon, you are talking about who we call Uncle Mike, that is in a Texas hospital right now. There is nothing more of a bigger biological weapon than this individual. That is a real threat to the homeland. That is something that we need to fight. This could be an epidemic of mammoth proportions. Ladies and gentlemen, the threat is real.